Hello, everybody. My name is Leah. Welcome. I am the host. This week we have Evans Kithinji, who is going to take us through how to grant an EC2 instance permission to access an S3 bucket. Evans is an AWS cloud engineer. He's also a freelancer. He has experience for a number of years in IT, and he'll be taking us through this demonstration today. Evans, please welcome. Karibu.
Thank you, Leah, for the introduction. As you've heard from Leah, my name is Evans. In the past few years, I've been a cloud enthusiast, to be specific, an AWS cloud engineer. And it's really helped me in my daily activities. We're looking forward to having the Amazon Golden Jacket. We haven't gotten there yet, so this is the Amazon Golden Jacket. I hear that for you to get this, currently, you need to have certified for the 12 certifications that they have. So we're looking forward to that. Before I became an AWS cloud engineer, I was an affiliate marketer, and we used to market products for people and services. So we used to have many web pages that I didn't know how to host. Now, thanks to the cloud, I can host these so many web pages for free or at a cheaper cost. Other than that, I am a content creator, so I feel like we are here in this earth just passing by. We're not inhabitants, so I feel like future generations might need our knowledge to survive. So that's why I'm basically a content creator. With that said, I'll get into today's topic. I'll be walking you through the solutions for this week's CloudForceSky weekly challenge. The challenge was to grant an EC2 instance permissions to access S3 buckets. As an IAM user, I'm going to log into the AWS Management Console. I'll go ahead and create the resources that are needed for this exercise. So first of all, I'll have to create an IAM role. So on this IAM role, I'll attach permissions to access S3 buckets, and then I'll also attach some permissions for SSM. So SSM is the session manager. We need the session manager so that we can connect to our EC2 instance. So we won't be SSHing to the instance. We will connect to it using session manager. After we are done configuring the resources, we're going to log in. We're still going to be logged in anyway, but we're going to check our resources. First of all, we're going to check whether we can be able to access the objects that are in S3 using simple AWS CLI commands. And just as an addition, on the S3 bucket, we will have saved a simple index.html file. So this is the HTML file. If you open it on your browser, this is what it's going to look like. So it's just a basic head and a body. So if you want to know how to write this basic HTML document, this is the code. And if you open this on your browser, this index.html file, you will get this specific web page showing up on your browser. So if we are able to ping the web page from the EC2 instance IP address, it will be sufficient to demonstrate that the EC2 was able to access the index file, and it was able to install it and run it so that it can serve the page on the Apache web server. That said, let's get started. So I'll log into the AWS Management Console as the root user first. For that, I'm already logged in. So if you want to know the difference between a root user and an IAM user, for the root user, you will have your AWS account name listed here on the top right corner. This will be your AWS account name. If you see something like this, so mine I've called it AWS tutorials, just know that you're using the root user account, okay? So without further ado, let's get into it. So first of all, let's go to the search bar on top here. We'll go and search for IAM. IAM is the short form for Identity and Access Management. I'll just open this in a new tab. I want to open IAM so that I can show you guys the user that I'm going to use to log in to the AWS Management Console and configure resources. So as an AWS best practice, it's usually not advisable for you to use the root user credentials whenever you're logging in and creating resources on your AWS account. When I'm logged into the Identity and Access Management Console, I'll just come here and navigate to users. So I'll just come to users. I want to show you guys the user that I'll be using to create these resources. I have one user here on my users, and you can see the username is Evans K. I'm just gonna click on this user to open. So you'll find out that this IAM user, I've assigned them a few permissions. So I've assigned full EC2 access permissions to this user because we need them to create an EC2 instance. I've also assigned S3 full access to this user because we also need them to create a bucket and install the index.html document, or rather copy it to the bucket. And then if you just check down here, I created this permission policy, which I named create role permission. And if you just click on the plus icon down there, it will display to you a JSON formatted file. Okay, so this is the JSON format document. So this one explains to you the different permissions that you granted this user. So we expect this user to create a role and attach the role. So we give them permissions to get the role. We give them permissions to create a role. We give them the permissions to pass on the role to an AWS service. So basically, they will have all these permissions. And if you guys want to check out a full illustration of how I came up with this user, if I just add a new tab here and visit the link, you will find out that this link directs you to a YouTube channel that I made just a few days ago. So here I explain to you how to create user groups and how to create users and assigning different permissions to the different user groups. Just make sure that you follow the link and you will learn how I came about to creating the user and assigning them different permissions. So I'll close that tab. And now that I've explained to you how I came about this user, I'm going to add a new incognito window here. I'll just copy the console login link to the user's dashboard. Okay, so after I've copied it, I'll paste it and click enter. After I've visited the link, I'll be presented with such a page to sign in as an IAM user. And as you may notice here on the account ID, I have Evans DevOps. So Evans DevOps is the name of my account. So I gave my account an alias. So instead of having an account ID, you can choose to have an account alias. So this is the account alias for my account. I'm going to type in my username here, the username that I just gave this user, and it's Evans K, and then the password for this user, and then I click enter to log in. So once we are logged into the AWS Management Console, you'll notice some difference here. So if I just minimize this, you will notice that this is the tab where I was logged in as the root user, and this is the incognito window where I'm logged in as the IAM user. So notice a difference here. On the root user account, we have the AWS account name, and then on the IAM user, we have the IAM username, and then we have an here, and then we have Evans DevOps. This is the account alias. That's how you get to know that you're logged in as the IAM user. Make sure that you're deploying your resources as the IAM user. So once you're logged in as the IAM user, you want to navigate here to the search bar and type IAM. First of all, we want to create a role. We want to create a role that we're going to attach to the EC2 instance. So I'll click on the IAM user and open in a new tab. I like opening things in a new tab because I'll remember what I provisioned before. Okay, so once I've visited the IAM Management Console, before I go where I'm headed, you notice that I have all this red stuff showing up. So I haven't granted these users so many permissions. I've only granted them the needed permissions. Okay, so I'll navigate to roles. I'll click on roles. Now we want to create a role that we're going to attach to the EC2 instance. Here on roles, I just navigate all the way up here and click on create role. Now we want to create a role that we're going to attach to the EC2 instance, and then you will be presented with such a page. So here you have to select a trusted entity. Our trusted entity type will be an AWS service. So you can either choose an AWS service, an account, a web identity, but for now, we're going to use AWS service. This will allow services such as EC2, Lambda, and others to perform actions on this account. So our use case will be EC2. We want to attach our role to an EC2, so I'll select EC2 and then click on next. On the next tab here, this is where you get to add permissions. We want this EC2 to be able to grab the index.html file that we will have saved on our S3 bucket. We want it to grab it from the S3 bucket. So we have to give it S3 permissions, and the permissions for S3 that we're going to grant it will be limited. We don't want them to have the full access. We only want them to have the read-only access, because we only want them to read the file and install the file on the EC2. So we will only grant them the read-only access. So I'll go ahead and give it the read-only access. Just click here to tick the option that you want to grant, and then I'll clear the filters. I will just click here to clear the filters. I also want to grant SSM permissions. So SSM is session manager. I want to grant SSM permissions to this EC2 because I want to be able to log into the EC2 without having to SSH. So I'll just type SSM and press enter. When SSM policies appear, you will come here and look for a policy that's Amazon SSM Managed Instance Core. So this one is a policy that will allow you to connect to the EC2 instance using Session Manager. Nice. So now that we've selected both our permissions, I'll just scroll down and click on Next. On the next page, here on the role name, we will give the role a name. So on this role name, I'll give it a role name such as EC2, S3, SSM, because this is what I'm granting it, so access role. So this is the role that I'll be granting to the EC2 instance. For the description, I'll just leave it as it is. Selecting trusted entities, you can see the trusted entity is an EC2 instance. And then scrolling down, here you will get to see the permissions that you've assigned to your EC2 instance. We say this is for allowing us to access the EC2 through Session Manager, and this is for the EC2 to grab the index file that will be saved on the S3 bucket. If you want, you can add tags. It's a good practice to add tags, but I'm going to skip that for now. So click on Create Role. Our role is creating. As you can see up here, our role is being created, and it's taking some time to create the role. So this is the role that we're going to attach to the EC2 instance. As you can see, now the role has been created successfully. The roles are now 5. We have an extra role here. So this is the role that we'll be attaching to the EC2 instance. Now that our role is created, we go now to the next step. The next step is accessing the S3 bucket. So we'll go to the search bar here, type S3, click on S3 and open it in a new tab. So on the S3 dashboard, here we want to create a bucket. We want to create a bucket that we can store our index.html document or maybe file. For now, I don't have any buckets on my account, so I'm going to click on create bucket to create a new bucket. And then the bucket name, I'm going to call it, let me just call it CloudForceSky bucket. And for the region, I'll just leave it as EU North 1. So this is in Stockholm. You can choose your own AWS region that you want. I'm going to leave the rest of the options as default, and then I'll click on create bucket. After the bucket is created, and you can see here the bucket has been created successfully, and this is the bucket name. I'll just click on the bucket to open it. Inside of this bucket, you can see that we have 0 objects, okay? We don't have any objects. In order for me to add an object, I can just simply click on upload here or drag and drop an object right here. But for us, we want first to create a folder. So this folder, I'm going to click on create folder. This folder, I'll name it as HTML, and then I'll click on create folder. So inside of this HTML folder, this is where I'm going to save my index.html file. So as you can see, created successfully. This folder was created successfully. Inside of this HTML folder, I'll just open it. So inside of this HTML folder, I'm going to upload my index.html file. So I'll just grab the file and drag it all the way here. So this is where I want to drop the file, and then it's preparing the file. It's going to upload to this specific destination, and then I'll click on upload. Now that the index file is uploaded, you see the status is succeeded, and now we have the role that we need to assign to the EC2 instance. So this is the role that we're going to assign to the EC2 instance. Now we will go ahead and create the EC2 instance. Here on the services bar, I'll just come in and type EC2. So after I type EC2, I'll wait for it to load, and then right click on EC2 and open it in a new tab. We will be launching an EC2 instance, and we will give it the role that we created earlier on, and we will instruct it to fetch the index.html document and install it to be served by the Apache web server. So after the EC2 instance dashboard has loaded, we want to now launch an instance. Just navigate all the way here and click on launch instance. Click on launch instance once more. Let's give our instance a name. Let's call this instance CloudForce server. We will select the latest AMI from Amazon Linux 2. So this is the latest AMI 2023. We'll scroll down and choose our instance type. So I came to notice that on these EU regions, you see when you just click here on Stockholm, we have a list of regions. So I came to notice that these EU regions, they have this T3 micro as their free tier. These other USA regions, they will just give you a T2 micro. So the difference is that T2 has one virtual CPU and T3 micro will have two virtual CPUs. So this is a bit better in terms of performance. For the key pair, we said that we are not going to be using SSH, so we don't need a key pair. And then for the network settings, I'll leave the VPC as the default VPC, and then I'll make sure that this auto-assign public IP is enabled because we will be accessing the EC2 instance IP address to check whether we can see our web page. So we have to enable this auto-assign public IP address. Over here on the SSH, we are going to uncheck this because we are not going to be SSHing. Again, we are going to be using Session Manager. And then we are going to allow HTTP traffic from the internet. So this is anywhere IPv4. For the storage, we'll just leave the storage as is. And then on the advanced details, just click on this arrow that you can see over here. And then you will get a drop down of more details. Okay, so here on the IAM instance profile, so this is where we get to assign our IAM role to the EC2 instance. So I'll just click here to select. As you can see, we are now presented with the role that we created earlier on. We called it EC2 S3 SSM access role. So I'm going to select this role, and then I'll scroll all the way down to the user data part. So this is the user data part. This is where you get to input the user data. And then I'm going to copy a script here. So I'm going to copy a script and paste it in here. This script, basically the first line here, this is a shebang. So this is basic shell scripting. This is how you get to introduce the script. So this sudo elevates your permission so that you can be able to work on these other commands. So this is a line that will update your machine's operating system. And then this is a command that will install Apache web server, and then it will automatically accept, or it will say yes for all the prompts. You see the prompts that you always asked if you should type yes or no, so it will always say yes for the prompts. And then this other line here instructs this server to start Apache. Okay, and then this other sudo systemctl enable httpd, this one will make sure that your server is always on after the machine has restarted. So this other line here, it will copy this file that's been saved on the S3 bucket. It will copy it to this var/www/html index directory. So this is where this file will be saved. So this is where Apache usually refers when it wants to serve web pages. And then just to make sure that everything is alright, ensure that you paste your bucket name here. So we pasted our CloudForceSky bucket name here. And then this last line will make sure that Apache restarts so that we can make sure everything works. With that said and done, I'll go ahead and launch my instance. So guys, our launch was initiated successfully. So I'll navigate here to check on the instances. As you can see, we have one instance named as CloudForce server, running and currently initializing. So this is the public IPv4 address that we are supposed to access this web server from. Remember guys, I told you that we were going to get access to such a web page. You see, the web page will look like this if we get to access this public IP address. So it will display such a web page, okay? So let us go ahead and test that. So I'll just double click on the public IPv4 address and Control C because I cannot right click and copy anywhere here. So I'll add a new tab and then I'll type HTTP for the unsecure version of the site, and then because we allowed port 80 only, and then paste in the IP address for the CloudForce server EC2 instance, and then press enter. And guys, as you can see, let me just zoom in. Hello world. So this is the page I told you guys we will be able to access from this IP address of the EC2 instance that we just launched. So if I just go back to EC2 instances, this is the IP address. So it's 16 and 151 and 16 151. So I believe this instance has finished initializing. I'll go ahead and make sure that we test the second time. We see whether we can be able to list the bucket contents. So I'll just go ahead and connect to this EC2 instance using session manager. So I'll click on connect. And then as you can see here, I'm presented with a list of ways that I can connect to the EC2 instance. So we have the EC2 instance connect, we have the session manager, we have SSH client, and the EC2 serial console. Mine will be the session manager. So I'll click on session manager and click on connect. So session manager is just like connecting from SSH. The only difference is that here we are doing it from a browser. After we've been connected to the session manager, I'll make sure this is a bit larger for you guys to see. Now you can see this is the instance ID for the instance that we're connected to. So I'll just go ahead and run a few AWS commands here. So I'll write AWS S3 ls. So this command is basically to list all the files on your S3 service, okay, in your AWS account. So I'm gonna press enter, and as you guys can see, we have this CloudForceSky bucket. And if maybe you want some more level of granularity, you can just press the up arrow key, repeat the same command, and then but add something new here. S3, this is the file path. So I'll write CloudForceSky bucket. So this is for you to list all the objects inside of CloudForceSky bucket. Then you can see we have the HTML folder. And if you want to list the HTML folder, you can just write all that command plus the HTML now and then press enter. And then you'll find out that we have our index.html file. I've come to the end of my presentation now. So thank you so much for your time. And if you want to check me out on LinkedIn, this is my profile. Let's connect. So this is what I call myself on LinkedIn. You'll find such an image on my page. And before I finish up, let me just say that I have this YouTube channel too. So I showed you guys where to get the creation of users and groups and assigning permissions. So go ahead and subscribe to this YouTube channel too. More content is coming soon. Thank you. And back to you, Leah, the host.
Thank you very much, Evans. Thank you so much for that presentation and demonstration. Thank you so much for joining us this time. Come again next Wednesday. We'll be back here with another demonstration presentation with another person. So thank you once again for joining us. And this is it. Goodbye.